Hey everyone, hope you can see me out there. Park here. Welcome. After that crazy night last night, historical election, obviously, and it's glad to see we're all out of bed, getting after it. And as you may have seen in my note today, it is about not worrying about who's in the White House, because you know who's in the White House isn't going to take care of you. You are going to take care of you, and I am going to take care of me. And today is all about me helping you take care of your brand story in any way you can. I've got an interesting thing happening this afternoon. My friend Randy Olson, who's written a couple books on storytelling and actually did some consulting with Hillary and her group about getting their narrative straight and getting a story. And it seems like what it ultimately came down to is the Donald just had a better story. In The Guardian today, there's an article that says he won because he appealed to the heart and not the head. And so whether you're on his side or not, it doesn't matter at this point. He is going to be our next president. And I think it's a really solid example of literally brand storytelling. He had one story in 3 acts, and he said it over and over and over and over again, and that was America was great. It is no longer great. I'm going to make it great again. And that obviously appealed with enough voters, even without a lot of depth behind how he's going to do that. But let's all hope and pray that this comes together, and he will help us, get us back on the right path. But that's enough about that today, because today is about you and your brand story, and I'm so delighted you're here. I'm just hoping that, can you hear me okay out there in TV land? We're using this Webinars on Airs. It seems to be working all right, but I'm never quite sure. So if you can give me a thumbs up or a ping in the chat, let me know that you're seeing everything okay, because I want to make sure you get the most out of this program. So this is a program that started, well, actually 5 weeks ago. This was third in a series of webinars I've done about the business of story. The first one is to give you kind of an overall view look at what storytelling is all about, especially in branding, and how we need to stand out in this crowded, abundant market today. And there's abundance of brands, there's abundance of messaging, there are abundant channels, and it is just so impossible to rise above the noise of what we've created in our lives through the technology that's available to us. We are connected, 24/7, and we're all our own broadcast mediums and publishing houses from around the world. So we're just adding to the noise. As you've heard me say, ADHD has become a communicable disease, and unfortunately, we're all the viruses. So we're competing against ourselves and our loved ones and our friends and our families and our competition in being heard in this very loud market. So today, I'm going to show you 3 really incredible examples of business storytelling and how they've come together. 2 of the brands that you will be very familiar with. A third one is just launching here in Phoenix on Monday and is, I'm certain, going to take the world by storm. But I want to show you how established brands have done a great job of telling their stories, how new up-and-coming brands, you've been around 5 or 10 years, that mid-market brand are telling their stories, and how you can do it on a launch basis. Now, as you know, too, if you've been a part of these, the story cycle process takes you to a deep dive in through your brand storytelling. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to show you the 3 primary elements I want you to focus on now. I want you to focus on right after this, just to help you clarify your story in the marketplace. Define what you do better than anybody else. Understand who cares, who is at the center of this story, and then ultimately boil it down to the conflict within your story, the tension within your story that your brand is answering, that your brand is helping people get through. Because without conflict, we have no story. And actually, without disruptive forces and conflict and antagonists in our lives, we don't really have a brand that matters, because that conflict boils it down to where is our brand most urgent, relevant, and timely. So today I'm going to show you these 3, and I'm going to talk about those 3 primary elements. I was just actually in Washington, D.C. last week, and I did a workshop for the American Marketing Association. I do these 2-day workshops, and they bring in their members. And I was working with 10 people that represented 9 different brands around the table. And these three things that we cover today are the three mistakes they were all making that I helped clarify, help them get their story straight by the time they left. And these are the three mistakes that you may well be making. I'm going to show you easily how to overcome them. And oh, by the way, you only overcome them by simply recognizing they're there. And then you're going to have to do the hard work, and that's picking up pen, paper, keyboard, and really defining who you are and focusing what your story is all about. So without further ado, let's jump into this, and I'll be jumping back and forth, and let's have some fun here today. Again, this is all about telling your brand story because you are the only one who's going to take care of you and no one else. So let's take care of your brand to help you do that right now. Welcome to Own Your Brand Story, Growing Your Business. Here, I'm going to show you how to learn how to craft and tell compelling brand stories that sell. And as we go along over the course of the next 60 to 90 minutes, and when I'm done, I'll certainly be open for a Q&A with you. Feel free to jump on Twitter. Let the world know what you're doing with your brand story. Use our hashtag #OwnYourStory, and I will give away 3 of our brand new Story Cycle DIY workbooks that you can use immediately to start, well, crafting and telling that compelling brand story that sells. So that's it. Use that hashtag. I'll go through. I'll cull through them. We'll pull names out of a hat, and I'll let you know later today if you're the lucky winner of that. But let me start with an Austrian. Have you ever heard of Dietrich Mateschitz? I'm not really sure how you say that last name, but I'm just going to go with Mateschitz because it just really, is like the perfect name. Now, this guy was born back in 1944 in Austria. His parents got separated at a very young age, which I'm sure had a tremendous impact on him. And growing up, he was always looking to find his way. As a matter of fact, it took him about 10 years to graduate from Vienna University of Economics and Business Administration, as he was just trying to figure out what in the world is he going to do in this life. And, what were his true passions? What did he want to do? 10 years, a decade at this place to get out of it. And when he left, one of the first gigs he took was at Unilever. He went in there. He was marketing detergent in Austria and throughout Germany and so forth. And then in, what was it? It was about 1986, 87. He had made a trip over to Thailand. And as he was selling toothpaste, because he had moved on from working at Unilever to working for this company that sold this toothpaste, it was called Blendax. He was on the road and he was talking to the truckers that were shipping the stuff around, and he realized that these truckers were just downing this energy drink over there. They were just taking it in all they could. And he was kind of blown away by it. The more research he did looking at this stuff, he realized that people were making a fortune in this energy drink market. And he came across this one, Krating Dang. I don't know how you say it, but I know it does translate in Taiwanese as water buffalo. And so he got this, and he started speaking with the folks that own this particular brand. And it was water, it was sugar, caffeine, and taurine, an amino acid that helped, as they say, helped with the immune system, helped with clarity, helped with circulation in your system. And the bottom line, I think you're starting to recognize this logo now, it was an energy drink. Well, he thought he found his calling. He and his buddy scrapped together $500,000 each, bought into this company, reformulated it, and then in April 1st, 1987, he launched it in Austria. Now, it didn't take off real well at first. He had some troubles like we all do when we're starting something new. In this case, his formula was very, very sugary and very syrupy. And he found that what played in Taiwan did not work in Austria. So he watered it down a little bit more and added a lot of carbonation to it. And he created, of course, what we know today as Red Bull. Now, he had spent all of his money being a poor toothpaste salesman into buying the rights to be able to distribute this. And so he wasn't even necessarily the creator of Red Bull. I mean, he did add that little carbonation to it, a little bit more water to it so that we have the drink we have today. But he was stone broke. He had no money for advertising in any way, shape, or form. But what he did have is that experience from Unilever in how to market brands, detergents, and then on to toothpaste through events, through what they call guerrilla marketing. And so that's what he did. He started attaching his logo to the craziest, cheapest sports heroes he could find out there. You know, these weren't your Olympic winning downhill skiers and so forth. These were street losers. And they were like just the craziest people around, base jumpers, you know, the extreme sports folks. And he felt that he could do this because it was extraordinarily inexpensive to market it. And all he was trying to do is create a stunt. Truly, I guess you could say the father of buzz marketing in every aspect of it, but to create a stunt that would bring out throngs of people to see it in action. And then, of course, get him free media exposure the world over. I mean, he was an absolute genius at it. And as a matter of fact, 2003, this is Felix Baumgartner, and he is literally rocketing 22 miles from Dover, England to Calais, France, for the very first time on, of course, a Red Bull jetpack. And the interesting thing I love about this story, this is back in 2003, and as he was growing his business, France was one of the areas that said, no, we're not in. We don't know what this supposed functional drink, energy drink is, and we're not letting you in. So what does he essentially do? He fires a shot over the bow of France by literally jetpacking his guy into Calais, France, and then, of course, capturing it on the world for everyone to see. And we do know what he did after that, Felix. He jumped from the Stratus project back in 2012. He leaped, what, 112,000 feet, the longest, highest free fall ever. And there was Red Bull living very much into its brand ideal. And why this works so well for Red Bull is because it plays to that enthusiast in all of us. You know, certainly we aren't all these extreme sports folks. In fact, very few of us are. But we get to live vicariously through them. We now, with GoPros on their helmets and being right alongside them, actually get embedded in their feats without the risk of breaking our necks. We let them break our necks, but my God, you go on any of these YouTube videos and you see these GoPro vantage points of some of these cyclists, some of these motorbikers out there, and you're coming right along for the ride. So it's the way that they imbue their brand story. And now in this day and age, of course, Red Bull energy drinks is just a commodity product, but they own almost 50% of the market because essentially they defined the market and they have grown their brand story ever since, relentlessly. I mean, they even take it to the top of the world when they had here this famous Russian daredevil, Valery Rozov, who jumps the highest base jump ever on the North Col of Mount Everest. I mean, it just blows you away. So much so that it's become, if you watch Silicon Valley, one of my very, very favorite all-time TV shows on HBO. And in an episode, they visited Homicide, which was an energy drink, and they were trying to figure out how to launch this guy in this can to jump this ravine, essentially, in a downtown area. And I loved it, this idea of Homicide, that, you know, go out, be extreme, and yeah, you may kill yourself, but let's sell as much of our product as we want. And what does it ultimately come down to? Red Bull, we all know, gives us wings. The interesting thing about it, though, when they first started this, it wasn't about giving us just wings. Dietrich was all about giving us wings and ideas. So it wasn't just energy, but what that energy can do for us. And so what have they done with it? Well, they've created just an amazing publishing house. The Red Bulletin is a magazine they put out, and they say that it rivals the circulation of Sports Illustrated. Because why? They understand the story. They truly understand their audiences, and it's not just about giving you energy, but it's making ideas happen. It takes you well beyond that. Red Bull certainly has their own record company. You know, much like Richard Branson, they just keep expanding into other ways of bringing you media that is all around the spirit and the expression of their brand story. You know, they make movies, The Art of Flying, if you've ever seen that. That's a fabulous piece. Not only great movie making, but it also takes you along as a viewer for the ride. That's what they're all about. And they're just coming out with the fourth phase, a new movie where, in their words, they are expanding storytelling so that they can reach a broader audience. And I'll read to you from something from the website that I thought was so interesting. It's this comprehensive 360-degree media marketing approach and superior commercial distribution, but it is all about advancing the stronger story arc for broader global consumption. So even once you throw the whistles and bells away of all the technology and the GoPros and that, and living vicariously through them, it comes back to having a story arc. And their story arc is beautiful because it does invite us to be our own crazy extreme athletes. You know, in this case, the Flugtag, which is German for air show. They have over 50,000 people show up for these events and participate. And again, this is just an energy drink. It's just a can of sugar water, caffeine, some amino acids. You couldn't get more commoditized. But these guys don't miss a bet. So it's not only what happens out there in the real world, but they're all about what's happening in the virtual world as well. And they have been one of the primary and first to industry sponsors for esports, because they know the adrenaline rush you get and players get when they're participating in these. And of course, they've got to stay up 72 hours straight to make it happen. So what do? They rely on Red Bull to make that happen. So since the beginning, Dietrich, started probably very much a reflection of his own personal brand of this can-do spirit, will not fail, tremendous energy. Let's try anything and everything to get our name out there. And you still see it today as a very much of an expression of a brand and a brand promise that they want to connect to their audiences. Now, he said early on why they kept running with the Red Bull name. He said, everybody is fascinated by mythology. This is Dietrich saying this. He studied it as a kid, and he said everyone is fascinated by it. Again, the power story. And he goes, I was most fascinated by Zeus, the king of the gods. When he came down to earth to see Europa, he changed into a bull. So can't you see how this is all playing out through Red Bull and what they always talk about? And that is about giving you wings. And here's the first mistake that I see most everybody make. And it's okay, because I've been there too, and this is what I want you to think about. This is what's going to get you, like Red Bull, to 60 billion cans of whatever you're selling over 29 years. It's not what you make. In Red Bull's case, it's not that they make this, delicious or not energy drink that you can, of course, mix with vodka. But it's what you make happen in people's lives. So Red Bull gives you wings for people and for their ideas. That's what it's all about. So my question to you then, of course, is what gives you wings? What is it about what you do, not what you make, but what you make happen in people's lives? That is the beginning of your story. Now, when we do the story cycle process, we actually start with what you make, that number one position in the marketplace. That's our backstory. It's chapter 1. What do you do better than anybody else? And you have to get very clear on that, because it literally is your first step of the primordial muck of commoditization. So you can start leveling your brand up in the hearts and minds of your audiences and enlighten them so that they see you more than what you just make, whether you're a practitioner, a consultant, a brand, a consumer product, a business-to-business marketing firm, business service. It is just all about what you make happen in people's lives. So let's move on, because that's the first thing I wanted you to think about. And I think that Red Bull does a beautiful job of explaining that, showing that, demonstrating that to us. It's not what you make, but it's what you make happen. Your brand, literally, it's what the story tells itself about how you perform physically and philosophically. We just went through that with Red Bull, but think about it this way. As you level up through the story cycle process, let's start with, do you own your number one position in the marketplace? In Red Bull's case, it looks like this. They are at the very high level, very 50,000 foot, or let's actually take it up to 128,100 feet with Felix Baumgartner. They are in the food and beverage industry, pure and simple. But now let's boil that down. Let's bring it down to earth a little bit more. They are in the functional drinks category. So they're not selling you a soda pop. They're not selling you an alcoholic beverage. They are in a functional drink category, meaning that their product actually does something beyond just keep you awake. In this case, the amino acids presumably help support system, your system, cardiovascular, that sort of thing. Specialty invented this category, the energy drink with caffeine, taurine, herbal extracts, and B vitamins. Now, yes, it was around before he got there, but it wasn't an energy drink in this case. It was more of an elixir, a tonic, if you will. But once they brought it in and mass marketed it, bringing in carbonated water into it so you had more of that overall beverage, they literally invented the energy drink market. And then where did they go? Their number one specialty. I wrote this, and then they may have a better way of saying it, but ultimately Red Bull is the most popular energy drink in the world to give wings to people and ideas. So they're already starting to level this up. It's not just what they do, but we do know functionally they're the number one best-selling drink in the world. I think they have 48% of the market right now, and holding strong, seeing how they had 100% of it, but they are a commodity product. But through how they tell their story, they rise above that. So what they've done, they've taken it from commodity to create their product as a specialty good or service by using the power of story. It's not what they make, it's not what you make, but it's what you make happen in people's lives. And the only way you're going to communicate that is to appeal to their hearts and show them what you can do for them on a very visceral, emotional level. And think about Maslow. He comes into this, and here's a infographic that we'll put up online for you. This is where it all comes out. We all start in this number one, this position over here of understanding what we do better than anybody else, and we want to get to the right side because we want to get out of a commodity. We want to become a specialty good or service. That will help our own audiences be empowered and self-actualize what they are trying to get out of their lives through buying into your product or service. And then, of course, on the left, we get to increase price. We also get to increase margin in this. And believe it or not, it seems like it doesn't quite fit, but even as we increase price in our earnings, our margin on that, we increase customer loyalty because, again, we're just not selling them something, we're helping them level up in their life. All right, here's the second thing I found. So the first mistake we all make is we think we're selling what we make versus what we make happen in people's lives. Figure out what your number one position in the marketplace, what do you do better than anybody else, and then ask yourself, who cares? Who's your hero? Here's the second mistake. Every brand, most brands put themselves at the heart of the story. They focus on themselves and they want to tell the world how wonderful they are. And that is just not the case. We need to put our audiences at the center of the story. You've heard me say this over and over again, but it's one of the greatest fictions I see out there when I work with brands for the very first time. It's always all about them and not about their audiences. So let's take, and that I think does a really good job, and I'm going to show you through some of their own branding work of how they put a hero, their audience, at the center of their story. And it's something you might be surprised at. That's Skype. You know, Skype's been around for 10 years. What do they have, like 2 or 20 trillion minutes of time that they have made available to people? And what are they really all about, you know? They started with, they've gone from no people in no countries just 10 years ago to 200 million in more than 220 countries and regions in about 1,000 days. I mean, that's pretty amazing to think about what they do. But they've leveled up their offering. You know, we often think about them as for, you know, free calls. Yeah, I don't want to spend the money. I don't want to, you know, make a long distance call. I just want to get this for free. But they want to level that up, and it's not free calls anymore. I mean, it's still free, but how they talk about it, how they tell their story about it is freeing conversations, freeing life for you so that you and me can have this access to our customers the world over and, you know, really be able to connect with them. All right. The beautiful thing about Skype, when you start reading through all of their materials, and this is a infographic they did, kind of hard to see here, but they do a tremendous job of identifying who their audiences are and why their audiences care, and start talking to them on their terms, you know, not Skype's terms. So right within their book, I liked how they kind of spelled this out. Perhaps you work at Skype, so talking immediately to their inner workforce, or anywhere at eBay Inc. for that matter. Maybe you're a developer or partner creating hardware that makes it nicer to use Skype. Maybe you even have your own co-branded version of Skype helping us reach millions of people we could not reach on our own. Maybe you're one of the people supplying millions of Skype out minutes every week or Skype in numbers across the world. Who knows? Maybe you're someone using Skype every day because it makes it possible, easier, fun to do what you want to do. So what does Skype make? They make all this calling free and easy for us. What do they make happen? They free up our conversations. They put us in connection with our communities. And they just do a nice job of explaining, you know, and really identifying, connecting with their audiences. Freeing, and then what I like too about their brand stories, they do a nice job of describing what free means to them so that they can start connecting their brand story with their audience's story on their audience's terms. So they start saying, here's what free means to us, and we're hoping you're feeling the same way on your end. Freeing is about making a phone number on a website into a button to click. A little thing, sure, but a very useful little thing. I mean, they just have fun with this. You see, we're trying to free you up by managing all that information going in and out from you, your computer and your brain, every single day. We're freeing people from being held to ransom by a hotel for making a local call. We're freeing them by enabling them to send files to whoever they're talking to, or by hosting a large free Skypecast with people all over the world who like the same things as you do. We're freeing conversations by letting our amazing developer community create tools and games that plug directly into Skype and help people use or waste a day doing worldwide backgammon or presentations to an audience in another country. So you see, they keep talking about, here's what we make, but here's what we really make in your life, and why is this important? So this is number 2. After you figured that out in your life, who's your audience, who's your hero, and what do they want? So you've got this thing that you do better than anybody else. You've identified that position in the marketplace functionally. What do you deliver better than anybody else? Now you ask yourself, who cares and what do they want in relation to your brand? I mean, that's what it ultimately comes down to, right? Who are they and what do they want? Here's the thing I want you to remember on all of this. And we saw it in last night's election. Story. I mean, our caveman and woman brains love story. Keep it simple, keep it impactful, make sure that you communicate what's in it for your audience, because it's all about them, it's not about you, the brand, and we saw that again. Last night, Donald Trump, what was his story? America used to be great, it's not great anymore, I'm gonna make it great again. And he didn't even give us any real palpable ways he's going to do that, but enough of our caveman brains lap that up, ready for change. So an amazing disruptive force in the marketplace. And you can see where the Trump brand is now. This is a guy that had a hard time breaking into the elite of society. He did all he could to get there. And now he sits on the throne of, the free world. So it's pretty mind-boggling what story can do for all of us. And he just saw it in action. So use it for good and not evil. Now, conflict is the marrow of all story. Get right down to it. If you have no conflict, if you are at status quo, you have nothing to sell unless you are the low price leader. And who wants to be that but Walmart? So what is the conflict in the market, the disruption that's going on that you are there to help your audiences overcome through your product or service offering? What's that conflict? How are you the most timely, urgent, and relevant product, and how do you tell that story? That's what it's all about. The thing with this was the third area, the third mistake that I saw last week, and I see with a lot of my workshop attendees, is they're afraid of conflict. They don't want to talk about it. They want to just show up. They want to sell you something, and they want to move on to the next thing, but our brains aren't that way. We got to have the conflict. America once was great. It's no longer great. Major conflict. I'm going to make it great again. So what do you do in people's lives? Let me show you a fabulous brand that we have had the distinct honor of working with. And it's a brand that really at the heart of it is all about conflict. And it's the conflict in our own individual worlds of trying to stay connected in the maniacal pace, the maniacal journeys of being online, of creating all this content, and getting ourselves back, connecting with people like we really never have before. Now, a couple families, 3 families came together, and these are folks that have been very successful in the massage envy business across the country. And what they saw was a real opportunity to make meditation available and accessible to people on a couple different areas. Their name is Current Meditation, and what's so really exciting for me about this is they literally are opening up their flagship studios right across the street from me here at Park & Company. This is in Phoenix, Arizona, Indian School Road and 44th Street, the new development going in on the southwest corner. And Monday is their opening day. So it's really exciting. We have been working with this brand over the past year and a half, almost 2 years. And these are 3 families that, like I said, have come together that work very diligently on bringing to life what we all need. They've done it first through a lot of their other franchises with Massage Envy and some others that they have. But now it's about, how do we get to mental health? How can we make this accessible and get people to, connect with what has been around for centuries and centuries in Eastern religions and Eastern traditions, and has now, come to the Western world, started really making its way in the early 1900s, but has taken on a full head of steam here in the past 12 to 15 years, and that's meditation, current meditation. Let me introduce you to Current and how they went through the story process. We won't go through all of it, but I want to highlight the 3 areas that we've been talking about here, and how they did the worksheet, worked hard to figure out what is their position in the marketplace, how are they going to hold that, because essentially they, like Dietrich, are creating a whole new category, and that is accessible meditation in a studio that focuses only on on your mental wellness. So their industry, the 50,000 foot level, is they operate in the health and wellness business. Their whole goal is to make you a happier, healthier individual through the products and services they offer. Their category in this case is personal growth, because we go to gym to get stronger and healthier and all that, to clear our minds out. But theirs is all about personal growth. So they're going from health and wellness, starting to bring it down to earth into personal growth. Their specialty, of course, is meditation. That's all they do at Current Meditation. Now, some of their competition in yoga studios and other places and gyms do meditation. They do it on the side. They do it kind of in addition to classes, so you can get kind of confused and what's the offering here and how focused are they. Now, at Current Meditation, it is only about meditation. So that leads to their #1 functional position in the marketplace. Current is the #1 provider of modern meditation for mindfulness and well-being. So what do they make? They make modern meditation. And what do they make happen in your life and mine? Mindfulness and well-being. That's what they're all about. So who's their hero? Who do we place at the center of their story? And we spent a lot of time on this. So this is that image that captures that mom, that housewife, that person that is pulled in a million different directions. And they're maybe trying to do some meditation on their own. They're doing yoga. They're doing some other things in their life. They're eating right, but my God, they are just so disconnected in so many different parts of their world that Current shows up to give them that respite, in the noise of what's happening out there. Able to drop in, take courses, take classes in the studio almost any time. And literally, because it's like, that Massage Envy franchise is immediately accessible. So you have meditation accessible not only in the facility that they're going into, because they're looking at expanding across the country, but also making it accessible in our hearts and minds, showing you a place that you can go for guided meditation and really understand how it works. The other group, a little bit larger group, is if you've heard of the aspirationals. Now, this is a demographic that isn't so much guided by age, although you're going to find a lot more millennials in here. But this is a demographic guided by purpose, by ideal. So it crosses the board. And these are folks that are very much consumers, but they are consuming, very conscious of their consumption. So they want to connect themselves with brands that are making a difference and aren't just selling them stuff, but are actually leveling them up in the process. So this is another one of the markets that we really want to focus on, and all of our messaging goes around these very hairy folks in this with this aspirational mindset to be able to connect the brand to. So some of the things that have just recently come out, Current has been in their ramp-up phase, so we've been doing some teasing. We've been doing a lot of fun work. Melanie Weissman has been doing an incredible job on social media pushing this out. And I'd also like to give props to Luis Medina, who is a creative director on this, and he and I have worked for many years and has just done a terrific job of bringing it together, as has Michael Zeman, the primary writer on all this. But what I want to do is show you how they started pulling their story together and how it manifests itself. So it's not just about aerial meditation and what that is, and we have the best meditation guides and the cleanest facilities and that kind of thing. No, it's about mindfulness and well-being. What do you get out of it? Here's one of my favorites because I love ice cream. 3 weeks from now, you'll remember this post. And it's this idea of getting your brain together, this mental fitness. Meditation heightens your ability to learn and retain information. You'll also learn to appreciate your ice cream more than you already do. Now I can get into this because no one likes ice cream better than I do, well, except maybe you. But this idea about slowing your mind down, and I've been meditating for a number of years, and now working with Current and really focused it in, that it just makes everything sweeter in your life, and that's what they make happen. Wi-Fi's got nothing on this connection. Boy, don't we all know that. We are all pulled, and it's the conflict in our lives that we are on 24/7 trying to make things happen and trying to connect with people. And the more connected we are online, the more disconnected we seem to be in the rest of our life. So this is a conflict that they're playing into, and they have fun talking about it. You'll see that throughout this, and we don't just take it so seriously. We want you to have fun because, again, we want meditation to be accessible, not only geographically, but certainly in the hearts and minds of our customers. All right, moving right along. Now, the call to adventure, we're talking about conflict. Within the workbook, I've got a lot of different worksheets that you can go through, and with the Current team, we literally sat down with the families and we shopped and worked sheep them to death. I'm surprised they're still talking to us, but actually they're letting us to be some of the first in there to do this because I think they figure that our brains are going a billion miles an hour, and if it's going to work on us, it's going to work on anybody. But here's what I want. I've already taken you through what their number one position is. But let's start working towards what their unique value proposition is. And this is really when it comes to highlighting to your audiences, the heroes of your journey, what it is you make happen in their life. So in their case, their audience, and we talked about a couple different ones, but we want to capture them in this phrase: for people who aspire to achieve a better quality of life, period. Across the board, they really aspire for this. They are willing to invest time and resources in doing this, and they want to make it happen in their life. Now, this isn't just customers, but this is also relates to potential business people who want to come in and invest and launch a Current franchise in their own market. So we're really trying to find that thread to this story that not only speaks to a B2C world, from Current to their customers, but a B2B world from Current to selling the opportunity to folks across the country. So what's at stake for our audiences here? Seek a way to transcend the daily grind. I mean, really simple, man. We're all in this daily grind. It's nuts. It drives us crazy, but that's what we want. That's what we want, and that's why Current is a timely, relevant, more relevant than ever, an urgent opportunity for people to take advantage of. So what we do is we reinfuse, bring back in here the mentor. In this case, it's Current. Remember, you as the brand are the mentor, guide of the story. Your audiences are the hero. So how does Current mentor guide them? Current is the #1 provider of modern meditation experiences for mindfulness and well-being. All right, now we want to start bringing a little bit more romance to it, so we got to up the stakes a little bit. This is all well and good, but who cares? Let's take a look at what the competition is doing. Unlike yoga studios, gyms, and other health and wellness boutiques that offer meditation as part of their overall services, and I mentioned this earlier, the offering, Current specializes in mental fitness in an intimate atmosphere filled with sensory experiences within a like-minded community. Do you see what we're doing here? We're positioning them against the barbells and the sweaty yoga mats that you're going to find in the competition and saying, look, this is about mental fitness. This is about what's going on between your ears, and we're here to help you make that as exquisite and as extraordinary as possible in an intimate atmosphere so you can really focus on oneself through these amazing sensory experiences, which backs up their whole modern meditation thing that you just got to see to believe and check out, in a like-minded community. So you are there to build community with other folks that are also there to find that ease, that mental wellness and mental fitness that you're looking for. So we take all of this, and you can do this too, again, by just simply working through the process and making you explore and answer these questions down to the call to adventure or the unique buying proposition. In this case, this is for the B2C community. As the #1 provider of meditation for the modern world, Current offers a multi-sensory experience with skilled mindfulness guides to maximize your mental fitness and well-being. That's it. It's a little bit of a mouthful for a unique buying proposition, but we liked it because it continues to bring everything together, and we will continue to hone it as we start getting more feedback from audiences as they go through this whole process. Now, the one thing that I'd really like to draw your attention to, where I think is the strongest part of this whole thing, the beginning of it is what we make, the second part is what we make happen. Maximize your mental fitness and well-being. Maximize your mental fitness and well-being. That is the mission of this. That is the unique value proposition, and to make it as accessible as possible. So you can see a print ad here that we kind of have some fun with that. Again, an expression of this. Find a nice quiet place or turn your mind into one. I mean, gosh, couldn't we all use that in this harried world? Now let's take a look at the new website. When you get a chance, you might even want to, I don't know if you go along with me here or not, but go to becurrent.com. And what we, again, wanted to do in this, and hats off to Luis, Michael, and the team, and the families that really made this work, is make it accessible, approachable, and fun. That we're not selling incense and Eastern gurus. We are selling you guided meditation for the real world, for the modern world, for something that you can apply and use in your life right now. So why meditate? Well, the look on this lady's face tells you why meditate. You can actually get to this. At the gym, you pump iron. Here, you shed the weight of the world. Just a fun way, not too stuffy, to get to people's hearts and minds. There's a section on the website that even gets in and goes a little bit deeper, because people are always looking to dig for the data that supports our stories. In this case, we talk about how you reduce stress and anxiety, how you can decrease the physical pain you might be going through, how you can have increased social engagement by controlling what's happening in your mind as best you can. You don't really control it. You help kind of guide it. For me anyways, it's like that kayak going down the Grand Canyon. Before meditation, I'm a guy in there, and I've got paddles, and I'm flailing away, and I'm turning circles, and I'm getting dunked, and I'm bashing my heads on rocks, and I'm coming up for air just long enough to keep me alive so that I can experience the terror in all of its glory. With meditation, all of a sudden I have control of that kayak in that storm, in that current that I find myself, in the river. And that's what this does for you. And so these are the kinds of metaphors and stories, helps improve focus and memory. We just want to show that, man, this is really accessible. It's available to you. And then we take them through just this very quick, 3 steps. How's it work? Again, how do you go about it, all this? Meditation gives you an increased awareness of the world around you. Therefore, you don't need to bring anything with you to the studio except an open mind. Simply show up, sign in, and our guides will walk you through the rest. It all starts by booking one of our classes. And then, of course, you have a call to action. But where I really like how this goes, so that's kind of expected, but then we start getting into, how does it look? Now, being a brand new offering, we had to show people, what are they in for? They come in and check this out, and you can just see the beautiful design, how it's all pulled together here, and you can really start letting yourself feel the experience of what's happening. Again, inviting you into the story of Current, which is ultimately going to get in the story that's going on between your ears and quiet it like a library so that you can regain your control of your story. And then finally, how does it feel? This is what it's all about, man. This is why we do it. It's not what they make, that beautiful studio and that guided education and the greatest guides and modern meditation. And that's all a means to an end. That's the vehicle. This is ultimately, how does it feel? A 30-minute class may feel like an hour, or it may feel like 5 minutes. You might hear music in your breaths. You might feel like you could turn different senses on and off like a light switch. Or you might feel nothing at all, no matter the outcome. You did it exactly right, and the changes you'll soon notice in your life will be the proof. See the benefits. So the great thing about this, the group pulling it together, is they really have a sense. They have a sense for what people want in their lives, and they have a sense of how to bring them this wellness through the work they've done with Massage Envy and some of their other products. And so we're really fortunate, especially here in Phoenix, Arizona, to have this available to us, and you can start seeing how this whole process comes together. I've shown you the 10 steps here because this doesn't happen easy. It's not overnight. It's a deep dive process. What we're focusing on here is those first 4 steps. The backstory, your number 1 position in the marketplace. The hero, who is your audience and why do they care about you in your number 1 position? What's at stake for them and what's at stake for you? And then, of course, that disruption or the conflict that you have to have in order to be a disruptive force or to be a response to a disruptive force out there. And I think in all of this, Current is a really excellent example of the conflict that goes into our minds, and they're showing up in a conflicted world to help us kind of calm that and quell that noise happening within us. Enter the mentor. So we're going to move on very quickly through the 10 steps here, because I just wanted to focus on those first 3 or 4 primary ones. You know, it's about finding that personality for the brand, and this is where you get into the enter the mentor part. And again, because they are very accessible, approachable, modern meditation, we get to have fun with this. This year, give the gift of being present, and that, of course, is a gift card or a membership at Current. You get to look inside a little bit more, and I can't wait to show you the photos. We'll actually be able to start showing some photos next week as they open their door for good. But they started, you know, we went through and we started looking at what are the aspects of the brand that humanizes this brand. What are the descriptors that we look for? And I asked you to do the same thing for your brand. And if you get the workbook, when you get into chapter 6 about the mentor, about you, it's going to ask you, what are the 9 primary descriptive words that best describe your brand, and then where do you take them from there? This is all hugely important because it colors and informs your story. What's the emotional promise that you get? Those 9 descriptors boil down to this emotional promise. In Current's case, it's freedom. You come in, you do your thing, you relax, you get relieved of the stress, of the anguish, of the pain, this freedom of dealing in this world that we typically fight more so than we just kind of settle into. And, you know, it's not about being passive, but it's about going with the flow, current, being there, not having to push back at everything that comes your way, but to kind of roll with the punches. And you'll find this clarity helps bring freedom to your decision-making, freedom to your relationships. Life is happier. Life is just simply better because you've taken the time for yourself to get off the crazy streets into the studio for 20, 30 minutes to an hour to find yourself. And that leads us to the gift. And this, in this case, again, is not what they make, but what they make happen. And this is this gift of just being. Rediscover your authentic self. Not living the stories other people are telling you to live, but living your own story and finding the time and the quietness within inside yourself and within inside the studio to be contemplative and find what that one true story or those that library of true stories are about you and how you can live into them and have the freedom to live into them. And then we get into working with them where we go through and we went through the 12 basal archetypes, character personality archetypes, and they landed on these 3. The primary one for them is the explorer archetype with support from the magician and the sage. And I love the explorer archetype because really what you're doing is when you sit down and you start meditating and you're trying to find this peace and calm in your life, you're exploring these whole new realms of peace and quiet. And it leads to exploring whole new opportunities within your own story and within your own life. So I love where they went with this. And it's really important for you to sit down and think through what is your primary personality of your brand and how does it reflect the brand of you and the ownership and the leadership, because all of our stories get reflected through our brands. And this is just an example that to the untrained mind, this is just another social media opportunity. But those exploring it, their mind have come to grips with what this world's all about and finding that solitude are not whipping out their camera right here. They're actually taking in the beauty and abundance that is our world and that you find through a quieted mind that Current helps make happen in your life. The moral of the story, the brand purpose, when it all comes down to it, I ask every one of our brands and I ask of you, what do you do besides make money that makes this world a better place? Do that, do it better than anybody else, and the money will follow. Current exists to help all people connect with their authentic selves to lead more fulfilling lives. It's just that simple. So all of us, you know, in one way, shape, or form, are leading and living into some authentic stories that we tell ourselves or people have told us that we need to live into. In this case, in meditation and other things that we do, exercise from hiking to yoga to all those other wonderful things, eating right, helps us gain that clarity of mind so that we can really accept and embrace our authentic selves and lead more fulfilling lives, or as I like to say, live into a more powerful story. This is your moment. Thank you, Michael, for that one. I love that headline. So last couple things, it's all about building brand ritual. And when you go through the 10-step process, number 10, chapter 10 is like, how are you going to ritualize your brand and your brand story for your audiences? Current certainly is at the very beginning of doing this, but they're doing it in a fun way. Follow them on Instagram at BeCurrent, or you can follow them on Facebook, and you'll see the fun that they're having with their messaging. Have you hugged your mind today? Is one example of it. Some of the other things we'll be doing some environmental marketing, and this is like a little static cling that sits on you can put on your mirror, or put in public bathrooms. This moment of reflection brought to you by Current. Just another way of thinking about how does this all come together for us. So this is 3 examples, anyways, that I feel are really strong. Red Bull, been around forever. It's a ubiquitous brand now that certainly has stepped out of that primordial muck of commoditization in a very commoditized industry and truly own their story. To Skype, that we get to the point we don't even think about, but it's not about making free calls, but it's giving us the freedom to connect all around the world. And of course, Current, giving us the freedom to really live into our authentic selves and authentic lives. And you don't get there in just step 1, 2, and 3. Those are the launch pads. But this is what I want you to get into, because this is what the world is demanding of us in our stories, is that we have to connect on our audience's terms and not our own. And of course, the story cycle process will help you do that. We've been helping brands do this for over a decade now. And again, when I run around the country and some parts of the world teaching this, those are the 3 primary areas that I see people get stuck on. So I'm assuming you that are tuning in may be stuck on this too. So what is your number 1 position in the marketplace? What do you do better than anybody else? Who's your hero? Who's at the center of the story, and what do they want? Make sure that you are always the mentor or guide, as I am today with you. You are the hero of this journey. And be sure you understand what they want, because that's what you make happen in their lives. And you got to make sure that you're crystal clear on how you deliver that, and even more crystal clear, I don't even know how you say that, even crystal clearer in your brand story, to make sure that you are communicating to them to that so that they know what they get. Conflict, and finally, you got to have conflict. Without conflict, you have no story. Our brains don't care. Hillary certainly lived into a lot of conflict. She demonstrated a lot of conflict, but her narrative never really came out and identified that one conflict that we were all up against. And, Trump did a good job of that. America used to be great. It's not great anymore. I'm going to make it great again. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Our caveman brain loves that. So what is the conflict that you are helping your audiences overcome? Are you creating this conflict in the market, and therefore are the most timely, unique, relevant opportunity for these people to overcome that? Or are you responding to a conflict in the marketplace? In Current's case, they're really doing both. They're responding to a conflict that we all deal on a very personal level. And they're being disruptive, because they're bringing, for the very first time, I mean, there are a few other studios around the country, but they're really bringing for the very first time this approachable, accessible, modern meditation, or meditation for the modern world. So conflict is at the center. Answer those 3 questions to yourself after this presentation, and you will start seeing your story start coming together. And certainly here to help you with that. Again, if you'd like to throw your name in the hat for a free workbook, go on Twitter, let people know about what we're doing here. Use the hashtag #OwnYourStory, and I'll give away 3 of these today. Or you can certainly go to bit.ly/StoryCycle workbook, WKBK, to download yours down the road, or share it with some others. And in the book, we just have expanded it. It's 61 pages. Don't let that freak you out. What it is really meant to do is take you from start to finish to help you really understand and own your brand story by pulling all of your content, all of your most important brand story elements together in each one of these 10 steps. And then from there, the fun really begins, because you get to start articulating them through your creative, how your website communicates it, and so forth. The book is set up. On the left-hand side, I have an example of how I've used this process on myself with the Business of Story. Plus, you can go to businessofstory.com and see 10 different case studies of how other brands have applied it. We work with brands to do that. And then on the right side, you simply start filling out the form, filling out your workbook, on what does this mean for you, your brand. I also have small video testimonials that go along with each one of the chapters. They're 2 to 3 minutes long. And if, again, you don't recall what you're supposed to do at any one particular place within it, you can certainly just click on the link inside the book in the ebook, and it'll take you there. Or you can visit our channel on YouTube, and all 10 of the channels, or 10 of the trainings are there as well. So with that, I would love to open it up for conversation. What questions do you have for me? And how can I help you right now start identifying and telling your brand story? And I'm going to need to jump back and forth here. So I am over in the chat session. Do you have any questions for me? Moving on. Lisa, thank you so much for being there for me and helping to answer some of these other questions. I'll look through some of the things that have been coming in. Ring, ring. Yeah, William, I see that. You know who that was? That was my son, Parker, who was calling in from Hollywood. My story artist son, who was very verklempt at what went down last night. He was very much a Bernie supporter, and I'm sure he wants to chat about what's next. Wonderful, and it will be accessible for future use. Yes, the video will be, I guess you're asking. Taylor, you're welcome, Taylor. Dustin, a lot to digest. Hey, Dustin, good to see you. Glad to have you here. Really good stuff. Thank you. Yeah, you know, there are methods out there that you can do this very, very quickly, and it gives you a high-level sense of what your brand story is. But having been doing this for so long, using some of the tips and techniques that Hollywood knows about bringing together a story, certainly Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey that has inspired the story cycle process, and then doing this now over the course of a decade for, you know, 100 brands, large, small, and in between, we find that it really works, but it just takes some work. It just takes some digging into. Here's what you ought to do if you live in Phoenix. Get the book, get your membership at Current, work on the first chapter, go into Current, pull yourself together, work on the second chapter, go in, pull yourself together. By the time you'll have had 10 sessions beneath you, under your belt at Current, you'll have 10 chapters done through the workbook, and you'll probably have a whole new vision about how your life story and your brand story should be coming together. So any other questions for me at this point? I'm here for you. If you have any other questions, you can certainly reach me at park@businessofstory.com. You can go to the website. We have a ton of resources and tools there for you that you can download, some free, some will require an investment. And of course, listen to us every Monday morning. We have a brand new episode of the Business of Story podcast where we get to speak with some amazing story artists. We are on our 70th show. My mission of that show is to connect you with story artists from around the world so that business leaders and communicators can truly appreciate and understand how to unpack story and use it in their lives and your own lives to craft and tell compelling stories that sell. So visit us on iTunes, and if you like what you're seeing there, certainly give us a review. Let the rest of your world know about it. It certainly helps us expand our reach with the Business of Story podcast. Nancy said, I would like to know, how do my clients understand the concept and the importance of story? My clients usually think it's something for luxury brands only. Fabulous question, Nancy. Tell them this, that you saw that my caveman illustration earlier, right? I mean, this is absolutely embedded in our brains. Think of story as the software to the hardware wiring of our brain. So we can literally go, and it's all about survival. We can go weeks without eating, we can go days without drinking, but we can only literally go about 35 seconds without our basal reptilian brain taking in stimuli and making sense of it through story. So when we don't tell stories, when our clients get stuck in basal features and benefits, listicles, bullet points, shoot me in the head, and they don't engage the mind, what they literally are doing is they want a shortcut. They want to say, let me introduce myself to you and let me sell you something. Doesn't work, and especially doesn't work now when brands don't own the influence of mass media, because the masses are the media. So you have to introduce yourself. You have to understand what the conflict is that they're going through, and then you have to deliver the solution to that conflict. It's basic 3-act structure. Setup, problem, resolution. That's what every story is about. And small businesses that think they don't know story will or need story will always remain small businesses. It's just too much noise out there not to be able to gather the attention or capture the attention of the subconscious, of the reptilian brain, and it does that all out of survival. Setup, conflict resolution. What can I learn out of those three things and what you're sharing with me right now to keep this body alive, to keep this being alive? That is the most basal form of it. That's why it's been around since the beginning of time. That's why it's so primal. So it's, send them, I can send you a couple links to different articles that discuss that, not only my own, but others in well-respected publications. Not that I'm not, but Harvard Business Review tends to carry a little more weight than I do in some areas. And then I've got some great audiences, some great guests on my podcast that cover this. They cover the neuroscience of why storytelling works on our minds. They cover how it is connecting and how it is actually making people work, is showing where brains are lighting up. Of course, I can't show that on my podcast, but there are links to videos I can show this. So all you got to demonstrate to them is that this is the way we're all hardwired. This is the way we make sense out of the world for survival. So if we're trying to keep our business from out of being a survival mode and in a thriving mode, use story to connect with your audiences that way. I hope that helped. Glenn, sorry I was late joining today with you. Yes, we'll have a rebroadcast. We'll send a link out to everybody. Oh, Nancy, you always listen to your podcast. Thank you. And loving it. Great. Paul Zak, he was one of my very first guests. So he was on over a year ago. He is a neurologist, a neuroscientist out of the Bay Area, out of SoCal. And he has ZAK. The podcast was good with him, but he has some terrific videos. And all you got to do is share those with your audiences, share them with your customers, and say, this is why we got to tell stories. But you got to tell the right stories. And you only do that by understanding who your audience is, what they care about, and placing them squarely at the center of your story. Hi, Pam. It was very late, too. My, oh my, yeah, 60 minutes. That's okay, Pam. We've got a link that we'll send out to everybody. So we are at the top of the hour, and I would imagine I may well be like you, didn't get a lot of sleep last night looking through all this stuff. So if there are no more questions, I'll sign off for now. Feel free to reach out, let the world know what we're doing here at Business of Story, and by all means, if there's anything that we can do for you, from speaking engagements, panel discussions, workshops. I do workshops with groups to overall brand consulting and brand story development as demonstrated with our wonderful friends over at Current. I'm here for you. Let me know. Just track me down at businessofstory.com. And, of course, if you have any idea for guests for the podcast, let me know that, too. I've been getting a lot of inquiries in that. And so I'm about 2 months out of being able to get the folks on the show. But if you've got ideas for content and guests, again, send me a note at park@businessofstory.com. Charlotte, very interesting. Great. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And with that, unless you've got any other questions, I guess we will sign off for now. And listen this weekend, by the way, to Business of Story, the podcast, because Randy Olson is going to be really fascinating. Like I said, he spoke with Carville before the election. He was working with Hillary's folks who then completely blew off story and narrative structure. He's going to take us through everything that he learned in that process, and he's going to demonstrate to us why Trump's story works and why Hillary's did not. So we're going to cover that in the interview I'm doing today, but we will have that ready for you to hear Monday morning. All right. Thanks all for checking in. Great having you all here, and I will talk to you soon.